You think your car is an asset? Or that apartment with a giant mortgage? Kiyosaki would laugh. And honestly, this is where most people get trapped for years. They buy expensive things, call them assets, feel financially responsible for owning them, and then wonder why their bank account never gets stronger. The label sounds smart. The cash flow tells a very different story. And once you see that mismatch clearly, a lot of normal financial behavior starts looking deeply irrational. Kiyosaki wrote this in 1997, and most people still have not understood the core idea. So let's strip away the jargon. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out. That is the definition, not what society calls it, not what the salesperson calls it, not what makes you look successful. On just one question, does this thing increase your cash flow or drain it? If it drains it, the story you tell yourself about ownership does not change the math. This is why the idea matters so much. Most people classify things by status, not by cash flow. House must be an asset. Car must be an asset. Expensive phone? Well, it is useful, so maybe that counts too. But usefulness is not the same thing as financial value. A thing can be useful, enjoyable, necessary, and still be a liability. That distinction is where real financial thinking begins. And until that distinction becomes automatic in your mind, it is very easy to build a life that looks expensive but stays financially fragile. Hey, I'm Kira. By the end of this video, you will understand the real difference between assets and liabilities, why the middle class keeps confusing the two, and how one simple question can improve almost every major financial decision you make from this point forward. Because you do not need to be rich to think like a rich person. You just need to stop mislabeling what owns you. And for most people, that mental shift changes everything long before income does. Let's start with everyday examples. Your personal car is usually not an asset. Sorry. It costs fuel, insurance, maintenance, repairs, registration, and it loses value over time. That is money leaving your pocket in multiple directions. Can a car be necessary? Of course. Can it improve your life? Absolutely. But if it does not generate income and keeps costing you money, then financially it is a liability. Useful does not mean profitable. Necessary does not mean wealth building. Same with your smartphone. It may be essential to your daily life. It may help you work, communicate, learn, navigate, and function. But unless that phone is directly helping produce income in a measurable way, it is not an asset. It is a tool or an expense. And that matters because people often justify purchases by saying something is useful. Plenty of useful things still remove money from your system. A premium version of a liability is still a liability. Clothes work the same way. A professional wardrobe may be necessary. Good shoes may be practical. A suit may help you operate in a certain environment, but none of that automatically makes clothing an asset. If the item costs money, loses resale value, and does not produce cash flow, it is a liability or at best a personal consumption item. Again, there is nothing immoral about buying it. The mistake is calling it wealth. Consumption can be justified. Confusing it with ownership is where the damage starts. Now compare that to actual assets. Stocks can be assets because they represent ownership in productive businesses that can appreciate and sometimes pay dividends. A savings deposit can be an asset because it preserves cash and may generate interest. Rental real estate can be an asset if, and this part matters, it produces positive cash flow after expenses. Notice the pattern. The label comes from behavior, not appearance. Assets work for you financially. Liabilities require you to work for them. That is the cleanest distinction in the entire framework. This is where the mortgage example gets people emotional. Is a house an asset or a liability? The honest answer is, it depends. If you live in it, pay a mortgage, pay taxes, pay maintenance, pay insurance, and it does not produce income, then in monthly cash flow terms, it behaves like a liability. Could it appreciate over time? Yes. Could it still be a smart personal decision? Also, yes. But appreciation does not erase the fact that money leaves your pocket every month to keep it. That is why the answer is uncomfortable but important. It is not asking whether something is emotionally meaningful. It is not asking whether something is socially respected. It is asking a colder, smarter question. What does this thing do to my pocket every month? That question cuts through an astonishing amount of financial self-deception. And self-deception is one of the most expensive habits the middle class normalizes. And this is where the middle class gets stuck. Most of their income goes into liabilities that are socially celebrated as signs of progress. Bigger car, bigger home payment, better furniture, better lifestyle, better-looking debt. Society normalizes this so effectively that people feel financially successful while their net worth barely moves. They are buying liabilities and calling them assets. And that confusion keeps them working harder without getting proportionally freer. They increase appearance, not leverage. They upgrade image, not cash flow. That is the real trap. Liabilities often come with status, while assets often look boring. Nobody posts their emergency fund online. Nobody brags at dinner about their low-cost index fund or their cash flow discipline. But those quiet things build actual strength. Meanwhile, shiny liabilities get applause. So people keep buying what looks successful instead of what produces financial power. The market for appearances is very loud. The market for real wealth is usually silent. And most people are trained from childhood to chase the loud one. This is why one question can change everything. Does this put money in my pocket or take money out? Ask it before every major purchase, before the car, before the apartment upgrade, before the expensive gadget, before the investment someone is pitching you. Not because every purchase must make money, but because every purchase should at least be understood honestly. Clarity is more valuable than self-comfort. A painful truth is more useful than a flattering lie. And once you start thinking this way, your financial decisions become much cleaner. You stop asking, "Can I afford the monthly payment?" and start asking, "What is this thing doing to my long-term cash flow?" That is a completely different level of thinking. Monthly affordability is how people justify traps. Cash flow awareness is how people build freedom. One keeps you comfortable today. The other protects you tomorrow. And that shift from short-term affordability to long-term consequence is one of the clearest markers of financial maturity. There is also an emotional benefit here. Once you stop pretending liabilities are assets, you stop building your identity around expensive ownership. Oh, you can buy things because they are useful or enjoyable without needing to invent a financial story around them. A car can just be a car. A vacation can just be a vacation. A phone can just be a phone. Not every expense needs to masquerade as wealth. That honesty is surprisingly freeing. It removes ego from the decision and replaces it with awareness. So here is the first practical step. Make a list of your 5 biggest monthly financial commitments. Then next to each one, write one of 2 labels: puts money in or takes money out. No coping language, no kind of, no, but maybe later. Just what it does right now. That one exercise will show you more about your financial life than another month of motivational content ever will. Because once the labels become honest, your priorities start becoming honest too. The goal is not to eliminate every liability. That would be childish. Life requires costs. The goal is to stop overfeeding liabilities while underfeeding assets. Once you see the difference clearly, you can start shifting your income toward things that strengthen you instead of things that only impress people for 5 seconds. That is when money starts changing from lifestyle fuel into actual leverage. And leverage, not appearance, is what creates freedom. Kiyosaki was right about the core idea. Assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money out. Most people still confuse the two, and that confusion is expensive. Start using the one-question test on every major purchase, and your financial decisions will get sharper immediately. Subscribe if this helped, and I'll see you in the next video.